Yesterday, the Florida Indigenous Rights and Environmental Equality Organization held a press conference regarding the true account of what happened to Stuart Flores last Saturday at the peaceful protest. And the reason I say true accounts is because I was there. I saw what happened, and I guarantee you guys that police report did not match up to the reality of the situation. Before we get into the recap, I wanted to tell my account of what happened because I believe it's important for all of us who were there to share our true narratives so that they're not overshadowed by the falsities of what the media or the Tampa Police Department puts out. One of the many things that bother me about this incident is that we were moments away from all packing up, getting in our cars, and leaving. But to round off the protest, we wanted to close our eyes in a moment of silence to remember those lives affected or lost by police brutality. So I close my eyes, and literally seconds later, I hear a commotion. I open my eyes, and I see a protester being pushed by a black Volkswagen sedan. Now, this protester, who I will not name, in an effort to get the driver to stop, he starts banging on the glass. He ends up cracking the glass. The driver then stops. The protester is able to get out of the way. At this point, the driver could have backed up and left, but he decided to further accelerate into the crowd. And at this point, this is where he meets Stu and other protesters. Keep in mind that in order to ensure the safety of the protesters, we have to instruct cars to either stop and wait for us to pass or turn around and take another street. We definitely don't want cars driving through the crowd. And if you're a conscious human being, you wouldn't do that, right? Obviously, there are exceptions where if there's an emergency vehicle or if someone in a car is in an emergency, we will let them through. But the driver did not express any emergency to us. He just proceeded to drive into us like we were inanimate objects.
Whoa.
So at this point, Stu is saying no, as in you have to turn around, you are not going through this crowd. But the driver proceeds to accelerate into Stu, lifting Stu off of his feet and onto the hood of the car.
No, you can't. Please don't let me get hit again. Yo, what are you doing?
The driver then turns onto Swan and is driving erratically 40 plus miles an hour, trying to throw Stu off of his hood. The driver then turns onto a side street where the cops were just waiting there, and the cops then proceeded to arrest Stu and let the driver go. No statement was taken. There was no questioning. They just arrested Stu on sight and let the guy who attempted vehicular manslaughter go scot-free. Yes, this is a true story. Sheridan Murphy from FIREE brought up a very important point that I think we should all hear, especially since this is not the first time a driver has hit a protester and proceeded to drive off with no consequences.
Florida statute says if you strike a person, you have to stop and render aid. No one stopped and rendered aid to Jay. That's a felony. Vehicular manslaughter, attempted vehicular manslaughter, is a felony in the state of Florida. If I get in my truck and run over a white pedestrian on Tampa Street over here, are they gonna let me go? Hell no.
So, just to sum it up, the white man who attempted vehicular manslaughter on an indigenous person was not charged or arrested. Instead, Stu, the same guy earlier that day who was praying and spreading blessings on not only the protesters, but the agitators as well, was charged and arrested unjustly. And here's what FIREE did about that.
Today we filed a civil rights complaint with the Department of Justice pointing out that the Tampa Police Department violated Stuart's civil rights.
Yeah.
They violated his Fourth Amendment rights. They had no due process and no investigation to arrest him. They violated the Civil Rights Act of 1871 by seizing him without an investigation. They violated the American Indian Freedom of Religion Act. And just so you all know, because I know you people don't know these things, until 1978, it was illegal for Native people to pray in the United States in a traditional manner. It was a felony under the Assimilative Crimes Act. Stuart was protected by that law when he was praying.
Yes.
And that individual interrupted his prayer under the color of law because they protected him. We have also asked the Justice Department Community Relations Service to intervene because we are sincere when we say we don't want anyone to die.
The icing on the cake to all of this is that same day, Mayor Jane Castor, the former police chief, who has yet to seriously implement the community demands into policy, who has yet to condemn the violent acts of police officers and white supremacy groups against peaceful protesters, people of the community, was out making her rounds, getting her photo ops in at the Love Walk, which was a publicity stunt. There, I said it. This was an event sponsored by large corporations, including Nestle. Yeah, the same people that resold Flint's own water back to Flint when their water was undrinkable and unsafe.
And Nestle water. And y'all stayed hydrated, right? It's because the Nestle water sent some water down here for y'all. So y'all, every time y'all go shopping, y'all can help support them as well.
She was at the Black Lives Matter mural painting because that's where real policy change happens, right? She was at the Community Task Force on Policing, which didn't allow media in, which was basically a conversation workshop, an echo chamber that didn't solve anything in terms of changing policy. She was making herself look good, and she was making it seem like the city of Tampa was A-okay when people are still suffering.
Mayor Jane here. I am so proud of how our city is making kindness more contagious than this virus. The more people that see our example, the more that will follow it. I invite you to describe kind actions you see or do in a smartphone video and email them to forthefamilytampa@gmail.com. It will inspire people across America.
So since our peaceful attempts for change are not being listened to, and on top of that, people are now allowed to attack us with no consequences, it's time for us to turn up the heat. And I'm going to tell you guys exactly how we're going to do that. But first, I want you all to meet our state attorney, Andrew Warren.
So I've been the state attorney here since 2016, 3.5 years now. My background is as a federal prosecutor. I'm born and raised in Gainesville. I have 2 little girls that live here in Tampa with me. I ran on a platform of criminal justice reform. At the end of the day, I work for all of you as residents in Hillsborough County. And keep in mind, when people think about the state attorney, they think about an office full of prosecutors, and that's what we are. But our core function goes beyond just prosecuting cases. Our mission is really about public safety. It's about promoting fairness and justice in the system.
Promoting fairness and justice in the system. Well, Andrew Warren, we are going to hold you to that. And here's how. We demand that you drop the remaining charges for the rest of the protesters, including Stu, effective immediately. They do not deserve to have that held over their heads. They do not deserve those charges on their record because they were standing up for what was right. In fact, we know the people that do deserve these charges are the police officers and the white supremacists that committed violent acts against peaceful protesters. If the district attorney in Houston could drop charges for 600 plus demonstrators, you can drop charges for the remaining protesters. So let's see it. Activists, here is your call to action. Tomorrow, we are going to be calling Mayor Castor's office and Andrew Warren's office demanding that these charges be dropped immediately. We're going to be posting details about that later tonight if they're not already posted. In terms of, the script, if you want to know how to say it, we will help you with that. We'll have the names of the people who need their charges dropped right now. So do that. It's time to take action. It's time to hold people accountable and stand up for what's right and see justice being served the right way.
John F. Kennedy said, if you make peaceful change impossible, you make violent revolution inevitable.
Let's go.
And Jane Castor has a choice to make. Is she gonna allow peaceful change, or is she gonna make us have a violent revolution?